to put their mics off and the video off. And also, if you have any queries, please do write in the chat box for your comments or feedback, and the team will be making a note of it. So a brief about Shashwat. Shashwat is an NGO working for over last 10 years on grassroots level on circular economy, and it promotes sustainable solution for society at urban and rural sector. Shashwat Eco Solution Foundation is a team of expertise in different education, environmental areas in India and abroad, working for a sustainable solution for mankind with different stakeholders like government organization, corporate sector, economically weaker and physically challenged sectors in the society. The major areas Shashwat encompasses are capacity building, water, wastewater, sanitation, energy, and different environmental topics. So about Shashwat association with Arizona State University and the Resource Innovation and Solution known as RISN program. RISN global collaborative effort to advance circular economy is ASU's partnership with Shashwat Eco Solution Foundation, Pune, India, to collaborate in the development, planning, and implementing a local circular economy. So let us understand from our eminent speakers how moving towards a more circular economic approach could deliver benefits such as reducing pressure on the environment, improving the security of the supply of raw materials and stimulating innovation, boosting economic growth and strengthening the informal sector. As we are all aware, the 4 R's, that is the reduce, reuse, recycle, and recovery, so the flow chart. So when we are talking about the material flow cycle, but how economy circulates along with that, and why it is necessary to know about that it is not the linear approach, which is important, but it is a circular approach, and not only with material, but with the economy as a whole. So let us understand from moving from the linear approach to a more circular approach. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our first speaker for the session, Dr. Rajesh Bhuj. Dr. Rajesh Bhuj is the Director of Circular Economic Practice and also Senior Sustainability Scientist at Arizona State University, US. He drives ASU's efforts to provide holistic solutions to the complex sustainability challenges facing organizations by linking ASU's world-class researchers with clients, funders, and partners. He helped develop ASU's signature circular economy work over the last 6 years, the Resource Innovation and Solution, or the RISN program, which is a partnership with the city of Phoenix to develop a local economic development platform using solid waste as a circular resource, RISN hub in Maharashtra. So he has developed ASU's circular economy curricula for professional workshops and university classes. In 2018, he helped develop ASU's online GRI certified training program, making ASU one of only 2 institutions offering the training online. He is an experienced consultant with a demonstrated history of enterprise sustainability solution development. As a director of circular economy practice, he also integrates various disciplines across the university to drive circular economy activities, research, and solutions development, and pursuit of domestic, governmental, and private sector funders. So I would like to invite our first eminent speaker for today's session, Dr. Rajesh Bhuj, and let us hear from him the concept of circular economy and the global approach. So now over to you, Mr. Dr. Rajesh Bhuj.
Thank you, Sanchita. Pradanya, are you sharing? Who's sharing the presentation? Did we lose Pradanya? She's muted.
Yeah, I think Pradanya, I would request you please to share the presentation. Yeah, thank you, Pradanya.
So I'm sharing right now, Sanchita,
Yeah.
because I think we lost Pradanya.
Okay.
So I will go through the slides. Okay. Thank you very much for the introduction. And let me dive into circular economy, the work that ASU is doing. I'm going to start with more of a global picture, talk about linear economy and how circular economy functions in the global picture, and then bring it down to what we're doing in Phoenix and at ASU. So we're all familiar with what linear economy is. It's the take, make, waste economy that the world has evolved through over the last more than 100 years. But the statistics behind it are actually pretty alarming. Globally, more than 12 tons per person are extracted from the planet. So in 2000, it was 54 billion tons. In 2017, it's 92 billion tons every year, which amounts to 12 tons a person. And by 2060, it's estimated that we will be extracting 190 billion tons of resources from the planet, which amounts to 19 tons per person. By 2030, we expect 3 billion middle-class consumers to enter the global market. And I'll talk about that a little bit more of where that's going to happen in the world. You can probably guess where it's going to happen, but the data is also obvious and very clear. So let's look at how the linear economy operates in terms of the countries of the world. So if we look at low to middle income countries, you can see the beige, the yellow, and the red, maroon, red countries, the swath of countries that are in essentially the developing countries of the world. Big parts of Latin America, all of Africa practically, and of course, large parts of Asia. So these are the low to middle income countries of the world. Let's look at some of how the linear economies and how they operate. So let's look at global textiles, for example. Between 2000 and 2015, we doubled the number of apparel units that we as a world population purchased and consumed. So that's this purple line. The green line shows you the clothing utilization rate. So people are using clothes less and buying more clothes. And I don't have the data in this presentation, but about 70%, 60, 70% of those clothes end up in landfill. They don't actually get circularized. The dotted orange line shows you the world GDP. So it shows you the level of prosperity of the population of the world and how much more clothes they are buying. Okay, that's what this little graph shows you. So that's linear economy on the textiles front. Now let's look at electronic waste. So remember the countries that I said were low to middle income countries of the world. This graph, this map shows you the green dots, US, Europe, South Korea, Japan, and Australia, where electronic waste is sourced, and all the red dots show you where it's expected to end up. A known destination is bright red, and a maroon destination is a suspected destination. But you can see that our linear economy operates by dumping a lot of the waste in the developing countries of the world. Okay, let's look at plastic waste. This is a map that was created for a research study by Jenna Jambeck at Georgia Tech University in 2015, and it estimates how many tons of plastic are available by country of the world to enter the ocean. And you can see how much plastic waste there is. Practically every country is more than a ton. In 2010 numbers, China and a lot of the Asian countries are fairly high. And the reason back in 2015 was, or 2010, sorry, was that all of these countries in Asia were importing recycled materials from Europe, from the US, from other parts of the world. They were actually importing waste, but then it wasn't getting recycled. So what's happening to all that plastic waste? So this plot shows you in 2017 analysis that showed the 10 most polluting rivers of the world. and 8 of them are in Asia. So you have the most plastic waste that can enter the ocean in Asia back in 2010. And the most polluting rivers are also in Asia. And that's why the Pacific gyres, the ocean gyres of plastic waste, the largest are in the Indian Ocean and in the Pacific Ocean. There are 2 gyres in the Pacific Ocean. And the Great Pacific Patch, as they call it, the one that's closer to Latin America, that is the size of Texas in the US. So this gives you a sense of how the linear economy is functioning in terms of textiles, in terms of e-waste, in terms of plastic. You can do that for construction waste. You can look at food, organic waste, and it's the same. It's very similar. Now let's look at how the world's economy is evolving. Where is the urbanizing happening? So today, about 4.5 to 5 billion people in the world are urbanized. This map here shows you where the city centers were in 2010. So if you look at the orange, yellow, orange, and red cities, they're the big cities in the world, the mega cities. There's a few in North America, a few in Latin America, one only in Lagos, Nigeria, in Africa. There's some in Europe, and there's quite a few in Asia. And you can see India, of course, large urban centers in India and China and parts of Asia. Let's look at this same map in 2030. So I'm just going to jump between these two. You can see where the red dots are growing. There's a lot more in Africa. There's more in Latin America, but you can see that in Asia, there's quite a few bigger ones. There's going to be mega cities in India, in parts of Asia and China by 2030. And 2050 and on, it's just going to get even more demanding as people move into city centers. So that linear economy down to the urban scale is going to be very impacting, very challenging for municipalities and regions to deal with if we don't come up with a better way to manage those materials, right? So my last slide on the linear economy is a World Bank projection of where the waste is going to come from. So the color coding in the country shows you waste generation per person in 2016. Okay, so you can see where most of the waste is: North America, Europe, parts of Asia, northern parts of Asia, and the low to middle income countries of the world are not generating a lot of waste today per person. But when you look at the dark pink color is 2050, and it shows you that Latin America is almost going to double. Sub-Saharan Africa is more than tripling the amount of waste that's going to be produced in those countries, regional waste. And then you can see South Asia and East Asia are basically going to double. So this is all consistent with where the growth is happening, where the urbanization is happening, where the population growth is happening, where prosperity is going to happen, middle class is going to grow. If we don't come up with a better way to manage these materials, we're just kind of doomed to a mountain of waste everywhere, every city. So then what is the circular economy? Sanchita, how am I doing on time? I think I still have 5 or 6 minutes.
Yeah, please continue, Rajesh. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so what is the circular economy? Well, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation in 2010 Ellen MacArthur coined the term circular economy as a better way, a more acceptable way to describe sustainability. And they define the 3 principles of circular economy. Here on the left, you can see preserving capital, optimizing yields, and fostering system effectiveness. But then they generated what they also called as this butterfly diagram. On the right side, you've got the technical nutrients or the inorganic materials. On the left side, you've got the organic materials or the biological cycles. And the idea is on the left side, nature is pretty much already circular. Mankind operates natural systems in a linear way. So organic cycles should be easier to circularize through composting and biochar and all of these things that we already do, but we don't do enough of it. The right side is where the challenge is with all the technical materials. what are the characteristics of a circular economy? Again, from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, design systems to have no waste, build in resilience, use renewable energy so that you're not creating linear economy in terms of carbon emissions. Start thinking in systems and start thinking in cascades. How are systems interconnected? How do materials flow together? So these are the characteristics of a circular economy. So let me talk a little bit about what countries are doing, because I want to make sure I talk a little bit on the global front. So China first introduced the concept of circular economy in 2011, and they've been working on it since then. They're working on their 13th five-year plan and have integrated the concept of circular economy. The government in 2013 even launched the China Association of Circular Economy to focus on industrial, agricultural, remanufacturing, green consumption. So they've been doing this for almost a decade now. That's China. Europe, where a lot of this kind of started because of Ellen MacArthur, started around the same time. I'm not going to walk through all the countries, but Germany, Scotland, Denmark, Netherlands, Italy, UK, Ireland, Finland, the Scandinavian countries, they're all working on circular economy and have integrated into their policies. Talk a little bit about India. Back in 2019, so only a year ago, the Indian government wrote the National Resource Efficiency Policy and integrated the concept of circular economy. And of course, Swachh Bharat and all these things that India is now working on is advancing the concept of circular economy. It might not be called circular economy directly, but that's fine. It's still resource efficiency. It's still headed in the right direction. So that's what's happening on the global stage at national scales. And I want to talk about a little bit about what's happening in the US. So in the US, the future of circular innovation is an initiative at ASU where we're focusing on these 5 areas to try and recognize that all these 5 areas have to come together in a region, in every urban region, so that you build resilient circular systems. So that's the kind of work we are doing at ASU. And over the last 7 years, we worked on 100 different projects. They're not all circular economy, but they're public sector, private sector. We've done work with all kinds of funders. And I want to talk about what Sanchita talked about, the Resource Innovation Solutions Network, or RISN. It's a 7-year project, ongoing project that's a result of more than $2.5 million of funding from the city of Phoenix. We partnered with the city to complete more than 25 projects, collaborating with private and public partners in the Phoenix area. We created the RISN Incubator, got some additional funding from the US government. And through that incubator, we started 9 companies, not we ASU, but we assisted in the startup of 19 companies that raised almost $4 million in investment and capital, generated $4 million in revenue, and created jobs. You can see all the stats here. Some of the companies on the left here, the logos of some of the companies here. Renewlogy is a good example. They've modularized and miniaturized the pyrolysis process, so you can take plastic and turn it into diesel fuel or resin.
Rajesh, you can brief a bit, and we can, we have other questions also for you. And yes, if you can wrap up this.
My last slide. So I'm. Go ahead.
Okay.
Good time. That was my last slide.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Rajesh. It was really quite insightful about the topic and giving an overview from the global perspective. And that was very informative. I have one question for you, that we have heard that there's an institution formed at Circular Economy at ASU. Can you please brief about it?
Yes. So, there's a Global Kaiteki Center, which is an institute that Mitsubishi Chemical Corporation helped start at ASU. The word Kaiteki means sustainability in Japanese. They wanted to start a sustainability and a circular economy initiative. and we started that 2 years ago at ASU. So within that institute, we are doing one particular project on circular economy of plastic waste, plastic packaging. And then in the Walton Sustainable Solutions Service where I work, we are also doing projects on inclusive circular economy. So we are now working on this concept of circular economy that creates jobs for marginalized communities, for underserved communities, for excluded communities. So in the developing country context, of course, that would be the informal sector. So the idea is, how can you merge the informal sector that currently collects the waste and sells it as a commodity, but how can you make them from collectors or waste pickers into producers? And how can you have them now start earning a livable wage from producing materials from waste?
Great, that's great and quite insightful. So I will come back to you, Rajesh, again for more queries. But now moving on from the global perspective to the technological aspect, to share the technology with respect to the circular economy. So I would like to invite our second speaker for today's webinar, Mr. Santosh Gondalekar. Mr. Gondalekar is a technology innovator in solid waste management and a policy level expert for waste management. He has over 30 years of professional experience in energy, agriculture, and water resource management with respect to its technical aspects, community organization and media management. He is a member state planning board, 9th 5-year plan, study group under Jal Sandharan program. He is also a member district energy advisory board, Pune district under MNRE initiative, member expert appraisal committee, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Government of India. He has a vast experience in energy management, specifically in finding alternatives to petrol, diesel, LPG and coal that include research and invention of high-speed biomethanation process. He has received patents in India, European Union and USA for biogas technologies. He successfully demonstrated that bio-CNG can be produced from agro residue and can be used to run vehicles. So he received the first license from the Chief Controller of Explosive PESO for bio-CNG filling station. He also received the Ashoka International Fellowship for Social Entrepreneurship. So I would request Mr. Santosh Gondalekar to throw the light on the technology aspect with respect to the circular economy. Mr. Santosh Gondalekar, please, over to you.
Good morning, all of you, and thanks for kind information. I'll share my screen so that I'll have a presentation. Yeah.
Sure. In the meanwhile, I request all the participants to write their queries to the speakers in the chat box so that we can take a note of it. Yeah, please, sir.
Yeah. As Rajesh has already explained the status of waste management globally, I will give a little more focus on the Indian context, what is happening in our country, specifically in India. Since last about 20 years, when the first municipal solid waste management and handling rules were launched in the year 2000, we have started at least recognizing that there is a waste at the street. And otherwise, before 2000, absolutely, though there was a waste everywhere, no one was in a position to recognize that there is a waste in our urban area, rural area, and across the country. But fortunately, with the government initiative in 2000, we first had a legal framework where we had the rules where municipal solid waste should be managed and properly handled, started with that. And in last 4 years, actually later, in year 2016, it was also amended. Like we have a municipal solid waste rules, also we have a number of other different rules which also follow different kind of waste. We already know that plastic is one of the nuisance which has been globally now recognized. And India also has a plastic waste management and handling rules were launched in 2011 and further amended in 2016. Similarly, we also recognize in the Indian context that there is a biomedical waste and which needs to be separately treated, attended and disposed. So first rules were initiated and launched in 1998, and they were also amended in last 4 years in 2016. Everyone knows that in 2014-15, Government of India with the initiative of Narendra Modi ji launched the Swachh Bharat movement, where the Government of India, specifically the central government, started looking at the West comprehensively and started specifically emphasizing the urban area that the West should be properly managed. And you will recognize that many rules, regulation, the legal framework was amended post 2014-15, and still it is in force and still it is in the process of further development. When we say West, now under the MSW rules also, the West is distributed and divided into specifically wet waste and dry waste. Wet waste, which normally includes all the organic waste, which includes the food waste, kitchen waste, even the garden waste, and all organic waste is considered under wet waste. Whereas dry waste is specifically the inorganic kind of waste, where paper, glass, metal, plastics, all these different versions of waste are incorporated in the dry waste scenario. And there is always a special reference of biomedical waste as well as hazardous waste. Though quantity wise it is in a fraction of 1%, 2%, but it needs to be separately treated. And so even the sanitary waste, these different kind of waste needs to be properly separately treated. But at the gross level, wet waste and dry waste compose about more than 95% of the waste in our country. As I already said, wet waste includes all these materials like vegetable, fruit peels, eggshells, veg as well as non-veg is also part of the wet waste. All rotten fruits, tea bags, or whatever is a product of plant kingdom, any part of the tree or the whole tree is considered under wet waste. Whereas in specifically the dry waste, all the plastic, which is a special case, which is non-degradable that easily, and also the paper, cloth, and metals are considered under the dry waste. Basically, when we also started working in the wet waste and dry waste management, now fortunately in our country, because of the Swachh Bharat initiative, in most of the cities, about a couple of thousands of cities, small and big cities across the country, wet waste and dry waste at source is getting segregated. So we should give a special full marks to the Swachh Bharat movement, where continuously every quarter the government of India, the state governments and the local self-governments are giving emphasis and pushing people to segregate the waste at source, that is at household level. Maybe it may be household level or at industries. Everywhere, whenever waste is to be collected, it is the responsibility of the waste generator or the waste producer to provide that waste to the corporation, but in a segregated form. And now it's a punishable offense. If anyone gives a waste which is mixed in the form, then it can be fined. So that initiative is now almost established across the country in last 5-6 years, where it is said that about 70-80% of the waste, whatever is being collected till now, as on today, in urban areas specifically, is collected in the segregated form. Wet waste is and dry waste is segregatedly collected. Once we collect the waste, the actually challenge is what to do with the waste. So how to process that waste and convert it into product and dispose those products actually with economical viability. So collection of waste is more over, and segregated collection is more over a social issue, whereas processing and disposing of the waste is really a technical issue, because there are many technologies which are being developed, which are being tried, tested. There are many pilot plants, even the commercial plants, where different versions, different technologies are being implemented and tried and tested to process this waste. In the wet waste, mostly in Indian context, if we consider, people are trying and testing on converting wet waste into biogas. And at many places, biogas has been used to generate electricity, power, and whatever liquid effluent comes out can be used as a liquid manure. If and the other technology which is also been used is the composting of the wet waste and converting it as a fertilizer and using it as a manure and supplying it to the agriculture sector. So technically it is definitely possible. If we have a segregated waste, it can be either converted into biogas and converted to power, or can also be converted to compost and used it in the agriculture from where the biomass and vegetables have come. So it becomes a part of the circular economy, because effectively the vegetables and all this biomass comes from the agriculture sector, and after utilizing of its resource, whatever waste is generated should go back to the same farm from where it has been generated. So fortunately now we are testing different technologies, which is exactly as a part of the circular economy, where it is not a linear form. Previously, it used to go into the dumping yard or landfill, but now it is being circulated as a compost or as a biogas and liquid fertilizer and going back into the same agriculture land. As far as dry waste is considered, there is still a challenge at many places. But fortunately, now there are many routes which are also been now getting established, where some of the experiments that we have done in Pune with Gangotri and Primo Engineering, where we use the dry waste, like the combustible waste, and we convert it into fuel pellets. So whatever dry waste is available, like say paper, cloth, or even chappals, boots, leather, whatever is all form, it has a calorific value. So we look dry waste. Most of the component of dry waste is plastic and combustible part, can be converted into fuel pellets, or plastic can be converted into oil and gases, where it can be used as a source of energy. Only the non-combustible thing like the glass or metal can definitely be properly recycled. So if we consider a dry waste in the form of, not as a form of linear economy, but as a circular economy, then the basic source, like even for plastic, plastic has been produced based on the hydrocarbons itself. It is a form of energy. So whenever we consume that plastic and it is converted into waste, it can go back to the energy form and we can convert. So basically, sometimes we say plastic to petrol and petrol to plastic is a reversible reaction. So first we convert the petroleum product into plastic, we bring the milk at home, and later we convert again that plastic into petrol or a fuel value and use it as if we can directly using energy. So if we consume all the dry waste, which is almost 90% of the dry waste has a calorific value, then it definitely can be form of a circular economy. So we propose that like wet waste can also go back to the agriculture. All the dry waste, which is a form of energy, can be properly utilized and can be converted into form of energy like fuel pellets or oils or gases in the energy form, and can be utilized, and there will be zero thing to dumping yard, and so there is no landfill being required. So that is what we propose. Only some part, I think when we started doing our research, we thought that when we see all these challenges separately in sectors, there is no integration of the solution, then it becomes a really challenging thing. But we identified that there are 4 key critical criteria. If we satisfy all the 4 criteria, then definitely it becomes a part of the circular economy. In waste management, whatever technology we develop, maybe the technology required for collection of waste, maybe it can be for processing of the waste, or can be disposed into the boilers and furnaces, then whatever we do should be technically feasible. So there has to be a technology which is should be part of the solution. The other challenging thing is it should be economically viable as well. So it cannot always be subsidized, because there is no funds available with the government, neither with the local bodies. So whatever product are being generated should at least partly subsidize or partly uh, support the economics of the total process. So now, whenever we convert it into product, it should not be just dumped into the landfill. So it should have a value to that product. So it should be economically viable. Maybe payback would be a little longer, but still it should be viable. There has to be viability. It should not be that only the expense is being included. The third thing is also equally important is social acceptability, because this is the total waste management is part of the society itself. So the concerns regarding rack pickers, the concern regarding the people who are working in the processing industry, and the people who are involved in the utilization industry as well. The human resource which has been involved in the whole process, there has to be a social acceptability to all these persons or the humans which are involved in the whole process. So it has to be socially acceptable. Criteria should also be considered when we consider a complete solution. And whatever we do, the fourth critical criteria is it should be environmentally sustainable. So all the linear economy till date was never a sustainable solution in that context. But circular economy itself, the word itself states that it has to be sustainably, environmentally sustainable over hundreds and thousands of years. So whatever solution we provide, if we satisfy that it is technically feasible, also if it is economically viable, and if it is socially acceptable and environmentally sustainable, I think these are the four criteria where we can then achieve the total circular economy concept will be properly established in the market. And to our understanding, for waste management, maybe it will be a dry waste or wet waste. If we segregate the waste at source and properly convert it into different products and utilize those products, so it would be a one-day process. It should be 1 day or 2 day maximum process where a whole waste should be converted into product and should be productively disposed of. This is all possible, and fortunately, there should be some more experiments, pilot plants and commercial plants, which are coming up in maybe in coming year and two, where we can see the demonstration. Maybe next time when Shashwat will conduct similar lecture, we'll have a live demonstration and the films where we can show that the whole process is part of now then the circular economy, and there is no waste thrown across anywhere on the roads. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Santoshji, for such a very informative presentation with respect to the technology aspect and the circular economy and how it can incentivize the economy. Thank you so much. We'll come back to you for queries because we have a lot of queries from the participants. We'll come back in the question answer session. Till then, I have one question to Mr. Rajesh. For innovation, for technology aspect from the global perspective, if you can brief about it to our participants. Dr. Rajesh Butch, just to brief about the innovation for technological aspect from the global perspective.
Yes,
if you can discuss, yeah.
Yes.
I think, sorry, but I think Santoshji has to stop screen sharing maybe.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please.
So under the work that circular economy work that's happening in Europe under Ellen MacArthur Foundation, they have come up with multiple different business models for circular economy. So innovation is happening on the business model front, as well as innovating entire value chains, or at least looking at entire value chains. It's difficult to innovate an entire value chain, but if you can start looking at a whole value chain, you can start identifying opportunities for innovation. So there's material substitution that can happen that can cause products and technologies of products and material flows to circularize. But the big opportunity in the near term that's being identified in Europe is around the business models for circularity.
Okay, thank you so much for this. Now, as we move on from circular approach to economic approach, there is an intervention of humans or the community-led approach. So the success of circular economy lies on the community-led approach, and with respect to the ULB, Shashwat is having success story for that. I would invite Mrs. Pradanya Thakur to share some of the projects of Shashwat. But before that, I would like to introduce Pradanya. She needs no introduction because she's a founder and director of Shashwat Eco Solution Foundation, an NGO from Pune working with various corporate companies under sustainability. She's mainly working in the area of sanitation and solid waste management. She has worked with international agencies like GIZ Germany, various European Union projects, and Australian Institute of Water Management in sanitation, solid waste management, and water. She was also a trainer to all municipal councils in Maharashtra for solid and liquid waste management under Indo-German project and under various international programs for sanitation. She worked as a consultant for Tata Strategy for Tata Trust Garima project for delivering solutions for various personal protective equipment and machine-allied equipment for sanitation workers. She was part of committee members on policy level for various government bodies like Maharashtra Pollution Control Board, Urban Ministry, Rural Ministry, Planning Commission, and SAR country at international level. She has published several papers in national and international conferences. She has achieved Phoenix Leading Lady Award for Social Change in Sanitation and DSK Award by Institute of Engineers for Social Engineer. So I would request Pradanya to present the case study of Mahabaleshwar community-led approach with respect to the circular economy. Over to you, Pradanya.
Thank you very much, Sanchita. It's a pleasure to be here and listen to Rajesh and Santoshi for circular economy approach with global perspective and with India perspective with the technology. But when we talk about the technology for solid waste management, as it is a people-centric approach, it is necessary that people should understand, and as Santoshi rightly said, that if it is segregated properly, it is very important to get the segregated waste for further processing. That add on the value on the processing system and the further reuse and recycle process. And of course, we are talking about economy. So when waste is segregated, then definitely the processing cost also get reduced and the quality product we get out of it. For example, composting. If it is a wet waste, then composting is very effective and with quality composting. So with that approach, it is necessary to accept, as Santosh ji said, socially acceptable model. So Shashwat has got opportunity to work with the hill station Mahabaleshwar. So when we start our project, before that, it was necessary to understand what are the different challenges. That segregation at source doesn't take place. How to segregate, that lack of knowledge and awareness. We started this project in 2014 when Swachh was just to be launched. Vehicle with compartment for collection of segregated waste is not available, and still it is a case in certain cities. Decentralized transportation system is also a need. Composting of wet waste at household societies, or possible, wherever possible at household system. No decentralized treatment facility for wet waste. No scientific dumping grounds. Lack of technology interventions for effective monitoring system. And massive awareness. Yes, it's necessary to create a movement on that. And also we observed some policy on build, operate, transfer system that restrict some of the mechanism, like if it is a build transfer system, then that much volume of waste to be linked to the treatment facility. If it that much waste is not collected to, or provided to the treatment system, its economy effect. Involvement of informal sector to formal sector is also a need. I think next speaker Anandji will definitely speak on that. And post manufacturer responsibility for packaging material. With Mahabaleshwar, it is a totally different kind of city. It's a hill station in Maharashtra, and fixed population is 12,000, but floating population in the year is 10 lakh. People roam around in the entire Mahabaleshwar area, and littering is happened in various viewpoints also. But with that, we calculated that 450 gram per person per day. So around waste generation is approximately 7 ton per day, 7 kg per day. So no littering, no spitting campaign is basically the objective. Being Mahabaleshwar hill station, and this project was supported by Environment Department, Government of Maharashtra, and help Council for Policy for Swachha by consultative process with all stakeholders and capacity building of various stakeholders to adopt waste management and no littering practices. Being the tourist place, shock load is major. So council started charging rupees 300 per trip for collection waste during peak season. We identified the stakeholder and bifurcated them into 3 categories, like waste generator, so messengers to community, and governing bodies. So hotel residents, who else stakeholder group that generate waste. Then guide association, state transport, women self-help group, NGOs and school colleges are the messengers, and government bodies. Then role and responsibility. One task force team is created, and the role and responsibilities of each stakeholder has been discussed with them and framed their role and responsibilities with respect to waste management. So survey for dustbin locations is also very challenging issue, because no one, not even at viewpoint, any shop, any hotel, restaurant want the waste bin to be placed in front of them. So entire collection mechanism, so different council members, we really get appreciated support from council member, from chief officers, various council member, that they physically present in all the meetings which were conducted with the community. So Swachha Kamgar, Women Self-Help Group, Taxi Association, and council members. We displayed many hoardings and banners at different viewpoint wherever there is a gathering of people and tourists, basically in the peak season. So this is all hoardings and boards has been put up in different languages, local language and in English as well. And a lot of activities with various stakeholders has been conducted. We have seen that the local capacity is built with school and with colleges. We conducted street play, and now council is utilizing their capacity to execute the program beyond our project scope. That wherever there is a crowd, that street play is executed for no littering, no spitting, and segregation of waste. So that was a focus. Then traders, our shopkeepers and vegetable traders, they refuse to use the paper bags, and that was a policy council want to put in forth. So school has come up and they demonstrated well how to conduct the school bazaar with paper bags. Then ABP Maza has joined Shashwat for, and we conducted a carnival at the landmark that is near to the lake. Many people has been to Mahabaleshwar. Entry at the entry point, and where we have displayed entire event in the carnival was focusing on waste theme, and also a lot of products developed out of waste has been displayed in that program. So famous singer Shankar Mahadevan has given a title song. There is a good media coverage ABP Maza has done, and ex-honorable CM has attended the panel discussion. At the policy level, decisions has been taken out of from this entire initiative is compartment of wet and dry compartments to all the vehicles that took place. Then mandatory household waste segregation, that circular in place, and that execution and implementation is enforced. Hotel and restaurants wet and dry segregation was become compulsory, and if not segregated, waste will not collect by council. And every resolution we supported council to draft all these resolutions. Big resorts has been make it mandatory to have their own composting system, and even the grey water recycle plants. So motels is also put up the same criteria. Location of bins at a viewpoint with collection trip system in place. So in consultation process, that collection mechanism and location has been finalized. Capacity building of informal sector from Satara and Y for PET bottles. With Bisleri, there was a proposal for collection of PET bottles and crushing mechanism, and that has been sent for making the plastic sheets or cloths or curtains. So for that, that entire collection mechanism has been set up. Then per trip charges on collection of waste for extra trips during peak seasons has been put in force. It has created basically a movement, and that movement, and as because of consultative process, the community has also accepted these charges. Hotels, motels, restaurants, everybody. So, and that become a revenue model. That doesn't become add-on a cost for the councils. And so the council also freely providing all the services to this hotel for collection of waste. Then plastic carry bags below legal limits are banned, resolution made and circulated to traders. So this create sense of ownership within stakeholders, and it become economically viable and sustainable solution. And this has resulted in 2015 we end up, Shashwat Scope has end up this council of Mahabaleshwar. That time they received Vasundhara Award first prize, that is Maharashtra State Government's Environment Department top prize in Maharashtra. But because of this sense of ownership, and as it is created a great momentum, the council has taken these efforts at certain level, that Mahabaleshwar Council received award by hands of Honorable President of India, Mr. Ramnath Kovind, under Swachh campaign in 2019, that is last year, for the achievement of Swachh Sarvekshan, 8th rank in India, 3-star by central government under Clean City, and less than 25,000 population city stands second in West Zone of India. So this is all about. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Pradanya, for giving such an insightful and a sustainable and a viable solution and a practical approach during your implementation of the project. So I quickly move on to Mr. Santosh Kondhalekar to throw some light on the upcoming policy, especially the current solid waste management policy in India. Can you please also highlight what changes are coming up for this? Yes.
Give a short answer to your questions, basically.
Yeah, please.
Fortunately, with the Swachh Bharat movement, lot of initiative by central government, state government, and local bodies is been coming up, and lot many legal framework, the regulation, the notifications are coming up, and the legal framework is also been set up. So if it would have been difficult for me to imagine if there would not have been a Swachh Bharat movement, then what would have been happened to the waste management or waste in our country. Fortunately, now, as like Mahabaleshwar already, Pradnya Madam said, that the Swachh initiative has reached to different parts of the country, to cities and even the rural area as well. So this infrastructure now is established and is been implemented. Now it's time to enforce it more thoroughly, seriously, sincerely across the country. But I think in next coming couple of years, the thing will move definitely and will reach a longer distance, and it would be possible for us to actually see the clean India would be possible, I think.
Great, thank you. Now, can I ask Pradanya to tell us about the intervention of segregation should happen at what age? And Pradanya, can you please answer this? Like,
Yeah, very nice question, Sanchita. And I will also like before answer this, thanks to Rajesh, because when I was in Phoenix City in 2015, we had a lot of discussions with Rajesh about the segregation and basically community-led approach. And there is one nice example which I saw that I visited the school after our discussion, and that school, there was one event going on. The school was for 3 to 4 year old children, 3 to 4 year of age children, and the event was like they, as for this age group, parents are serving. The event was students were serving to parents, and I saw that the students were taking some crates or some food and they served the parent, and while taking it back in a tray, they were putting every waste remained in the tray at certain places, and for one waste they were going to the teacher. So I asked teacher, why every child is coming to you asking you something and then putting one category of waste? They said through such event we educate them to basically do the segregation and understanding them what category of waste is. So with that learning, and I have then also referred a lot of material with the storybook approach has been developed. So Shashwat has developed the various program with game through various activities, some indigenous activities in line with the school to educate them. So I think third or fourth age is the right age to basically educate, make the behavior change, so that inculcate the habits with, and they become socially good behavior citizens for the next future. And I hope this upcoming changes in policy in education system will strengthen this and incorporate such models with our system to make us socially good behavioral citizens for future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pradanya, for such a wonderful experience you shared. Now, moving on to our last but not the least eminent speaker, Mr. Anand Jagtap. Mr. Jagtap has a significant experience of using community participation strategies for addressing. I would request Mr. Anand Jagtap, please, will you put your mic on mute, please? Yeah, thank you. So he has a significant experience of using community participation strategies for addressing complex developmental issues such as microfinance, solid waste management, and slum situation. He has worked as an officer on special duty on the slum sanitation program initiated by the World Bank in collaboration with the Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai, and also worked as an OST in the slum adoption scheme, which was a community-led program in the solid waste management department, Municipal Corporation of Greater Mumbai. He extensively worked with numerous communities and NGOs while mobilizing urban slum dwellers in Mumbai for developing community-based sanitation solutions, and also was involved in the development of pay-and-use toilet blocks using PPP model. He led the initiation and development of the Maharashtra Rural Credit Program funded by UNDP, also involved in organizing various skill development programs for underprivileged women. He has won many awards and accolades for his contribution in this sector. So as we know, there is one more phase in the urban slum, and it's a big challenge to manage as there is no place for garbage. So I would request Mr. Anand Jagtap to share his experience and knowledge with the circular economy and the urban slum model. Over to you, Anand Jagtap, sir, please.
Thank you, Sanchita and Shashwat, for allowing me to express my thought on this subject. You see, I will start I don't have the PPT, but I will start giving information about my experiences with the slum communities in Mumbai. You know that in slums, while working at a micro level, we have a lot of challenges. Particularly reference to Mumbai. Mumbai is like the 60% population stays in slums. Geographically and topographically, slums are situated in very different and critical areas, like to access basic amenities over there is a big challenge. Second thing, that the heterogeneity of the population is another challenge, because the homogeneous, to work with a homogeneous community is very easier than heterogeneous population. Second thing, that is the slums, which are basically called as the informal settlements, where there are no formal arrangements of the services, because there is in terms of the solid waste management is concerned, there are no collection system, like a systematic collection system, what we can see in a formal settlements. That system is absent in the slum areas. One more issue is there about the people who are not basically aware about the impact of the littering, because they do litter in a public space, narrow lanes, and nalas everywhere. The littering is one of the big problems. And second most important thing, that is the cleanliness activity which is carried out by the local urban bodies, because people do not have the involvement in those programs. So we have developed the model of the community participation, community engagement model in a solid waste management, which was practiced from the 2000 to 2013. So I am sharing my experiences on the basis of this period. One important issue, what before starting, that we have in the solid waste management, we have the three major challenges: collection, like transportation, and treatment of the waste, that is disposal of the waste. So in terms of the first point, that is the collection, as I stated earlier, it has a very challenging job, because the narrow lanes are there, vehicles cannot enter into the narrow slums. Collecting the waste from each and every household is a big challenge. So topographically, as well as due to the congestion, due to the different socio-cultural aspects, because people have different practices. So collection, bringing the uniform system for the collection is a big challenge. Secondly, transport is not easier because of the narrow lanes and the hilly areas and the topographical various other reasons. So transportation is another one big challenge to collect the waste. Of course, treatment. For the treatment, we have this dumping grounds. That is, most of the ULBs are using the conventional method of disposing the waste in a dumping ground. So we have the three challenges, that is collection, transportation, and treatment. One more point I just wanted to mention: if you want to go for the treatment of any waste, there are no sufficient space for the treatment. So when we are talking about the very micro level or indigenous kind of treatment facilities, so we don't have the major space, because the houses are very small in the size and it cannot be used. And most of the people use their extra space, which is basically like a place like a Dharavi, which is one of the great example of the Dukan Makan concept, because the people will have the recycling activities over there or industrial activities over there. So this is one more example of how the people use the space for livelihood, not for the treatment as such. But slum dwellers has the two kinds of the waste. One, the domestic waste, that is used as a consumer. Second thing, that is waste is there due to the economic activities. Dharavi is one of the best example of that to narrate about the various other activities. So keeping in this quality of the waste, that quality of the waste in terms of is the consumption, out of consumption, which is waste is generated, that is solid waste management, municipal solid waste management is one aspect. Second thing, that is the industrial activities. Due to the industrial activities, there is a waste which is generated, like a Dharavi, and many places are there in slum areas. So when we are talking about the collection at segregation at source is a big challenge, because this industrial waste which is happening, which is generated, they don't come under any formal kind of a system. So collecting their waste and using for the recycling is a very informal system which is exist in the slum area. Of course, from the door-to-door collection is also critical, and segregation of the waste is another one big challenge. So keeping this point in mind and impact of the waste is basically like a nuisance in the slum areas, because it is used a very bad kind of aesthetic sense, because littering is everywhere, filth and dirt and unhygienic conditions are basically eyesores for the tourists and other people. So involving the local people in collection and transportation and treatment, along with a new approach that what we are talking about, the circular economy, that is reduce, recycle, reuse and recover. So these kind of the concepts, how we are use this concept in the slum areas is a very interesting to notice. First thing that is we created a sense of ownership. That is this waste which is generated in local area. It is your responsibility. So community engagement has to be people has to take the responsibility, and people has in terms of the as a sense of ownership in the program. So we got away from the contract system and we engaged the community people. BMC started providing the financial support for these activities. These activities, what is cleanliness activities, were introduced in slum areas, and local people were involved in implementing this program. So they were given some subsidy from the BMC. That is some and know-how was also provided by the BMC to teach them how to collect the garbage, in terms of the treatment of the garbage. So wherever the places were available, so we have gone for the vermicomposting, and of course whatever waste which was coming as a dry waste, which was going for the recycling. So they also learned that if you use this recycle dry waste can generate some kind of the income opportunities for them. So the people got to know that the waste is not a waste. It can be the source for the livelihood, and it can give you some kind of income opportunities. So that message was very effectively given to the community people. The community people started taking interest in cleanliness activities. So making them responsible for the local area cleanliness, because the public health is another one major issue which was needs to be addressed when we are talking about the waste in the slum areas. So this was also another concern for municipal corporation to make the slum clean, and it is a part of the Swachh Bharat mission, and earlier also we are working on the urban sanitation. So this was also one of the major concerns for the municipal corporation to make the slum clean and give the very livable surrounding for the local people, because it is also linked with the quality of life of the people. So apart from this,
since you have highlighted the challenges, I would also like to add, what policy level changes has been made to sustain these, or bringing the informal sector in mainstream of circular economy. If you can, club this and explain to our participants on this.
Okay. I'm just coming to that point. You see, we, as I mentioned by you, I was working with the World Bank program. So World Bank has institutionalized the community participation model in 1995, which was a part of slum sanitation program. And that same approach was adopted in solid waste management also. And I was working with the solid waste management. We are involved the community participation, and BMC has now recognized as that model. This earlier scheme was known as the slum adoption program, which is now implemented as a Swachh Mumbai Prabodhan Abhiyan after 2014, when Swachh Bharat mission came. Swachh Mumbai Prabodhan Abhiyan is another like a kind of title for this scheme, and we have been having around 800 such CBOs are working in these areas, and they are engaged in implementing 2016 rule of the solid waste management. That is, we have the policy document which is at national level, which is accepted by all the people, 2016. So segregation at source, that is one of the major policy change, because it was earlier seen as the responsibility of the corporation. So now there is a drastic change in approach. It is the producer who is responsible for the waste. It is not a job of the municipal corporation. So that major policy shift in the 2016 solid waste management rule has brought, and now we are sensitizing the slum dwellers. It is not a responsibility of municipal corporation, rather it is a responsibility of the waste generator, and he has to segregate the waste. He is supposed to be responsible for not littering in the areas. So nearby nalas, public places needs to be kept clean and hygienically suitable for the residential benefit. So these kind of the policy shift, along with treatment, there is a lot of encouragement for the treatment. So my major concern, that is the use of the technology challenge in terms of the, I'm just mentioning some of the challenges. because still effective collection in slum area is a challenge, because our vehicles, big vehicles cannot enter into the slum areas because of narrow lane. So we need to have the very smaller vehicles for collection, efficient collection. Second thing, that we need to have some sort of policy kind of initiative to provide the micro level recycling centers, which can be very, very easily available for the people. And in that direction, we need to build up the skill and technological abilities of the community. Just by only collection, the problem of the waste will not be reduced. And to emphasize as a part of circular economy, reduce, recycle, reuse, and recover. So those kind of the slogans of the in a circular economy can be achieved by strengthening the capacities of the community. So we are talking about the circular economy at the global level, and economy cannot be nowadays cannot be remain isolated and separated. We are linked, globally linked with each other. But what we need to give the message: think globally and act locally. We need to have the better partnership with the community and to feel the people, and to people should own the processes. Otherwise, it will not be sustained for the any kind of achievement as a sustainable model of development. So with this thing, I will stop it here. Thanks for listening and giving me opportunity to talk on this subject.
Thank you, Anandji. It was so beautifully of explained all the policy. Have covered every aspect and detailing about it, and very beautifully quoted like think globally and act locally. So with this, I would also come into the informal sector about the rack pickers and kabadi walas. With respect to the circular economy, I would like to ask Pradanya Thakur to answer on this. What is the role of the informal sector with respect to the rack pickers and the kabadi walas?
There is just, I will brief shortly because we are running with the time and participants already had some questions to many delegates. With our Kandivali experience, actually, there was a lot of CBO, as Anandji has explained, that in Mumbai, there are a lot of community-based organizations supporting in other residential area also for education, collection mechanism, segregation mechanism. So when Shashwat was working in some pockets of Mumbai, we strengthened them. But what we observed that as a policy level, this contracting system has come up, and the connect from community to community has been losing. So it is necessary that this community-led approach need to be there. And also one big observation that if waste is segregated, it is directly disseminated to various kabadiwalas or recyclers from the collection agencies. So it is important to bring this structure into kabadiwalas also into the system, to formalize system, and strengthen this collection mechanism till the recycling unit. So accordingly, recycling unit also can run in an economically viable mode if quantity of waste will reach to that unit. That is a concern point.
Okay, great. Thank you. And now moving on to the community-led initiatives at ASU, I would like to ask Rajesh, as mentioned by Pradanya, about the initiative. Can you please highlight about the community-led initiative at ASU?
Yes, so what she was referring to is we have an initiative called the National Teachers Academy, and the idea is to develop grade level, K through 12 level sustainability and circular economy education programs, content, and teach it to high school teachers around the country. So it's a National Teachers Academy around sustainability and circular economy. And with a formal program like that, you can then bring those concepts and principles and practices down to the lowest levels. And that's how you then reach the next generation to change behavior. So that's something that ASU is working on.
Great, great.
I think one such teachers academy by central government is coming up in Pune. So hopefully we can get opportunity to get some with some models.
Oh, absolutely. Happy to connect you with those folks.
Thank you for such an insightful views on your on this community-led initiative. Now, I would like to open the the forum for question and answer. We'll quickly take up two questions. One is the question for Mr. Santosh Gondalikar, that what is the present status of plastic waste recycling and use it for road construction in India? And second is why pelleting industries of Pune are not growing, though there is large amount of garden waste. Mr. Santosh Gondalikar, over to you.
Both the questions are really the challenges that yet we are not able to resolve them. See, when plastic comes and we want to use it in the road construction, basically we mix the plastic into the tar. In Pune now, you may have observed that most of the roads that are being constructed are concrete roads. So very less quantity of tar is being used in road construction, new road construction nowadays. This is one of the challenge that where to use this plastic into tar-based roads is there. Another thing, the plastic is very light in weight, so it is very difficult to collect it, store it, shred it, and use it when it is been when the tar is been used in the road making. So that transport collection is also not a cost-effective thing. So conventionally, though there are some experiments across the country where plastic has been used in the tar road making, but it is not a convention yet. Hardly any experiment in and around Pune where it has been successfully implemented. Rather, we feel that plastic to oil is one of the options where it can be relatively easy to use. And the thing that we are developing is plastic to plastic fuel pellets, and then that can be directly used as a fuel into the boilers like Thermax, and there are many companies which use the boilers and furnaces where all these things can be used. So this is one. And the another thing is, as you asked, what happens with the garden waste and why the garden waste is not getting converted into pellets and briquettes, we may call it. See, when the economical viable model has to be set, then it should run around the year. Many times what happens in monsoon days, like already in last 4 days, we are experiencing the rains, heavy rains in Pune. Whenever the biomass becomes wet, and though if we convert it into pellets, it cannot be used as a fuel pellets because it doesn't burn. So there are challenges when we use all this garden waste and use it as a pellet and briquette and use it in the industries. So we need to address it. So some drying is required whenever we want to dry the wood and garden waste. It also takes a lot of cost is also involved. A lot of expenditure is also required. So storage of this biomass, drying that thing, shredding into pellets and briquettes, and effectively use it at the industries. So the economical viability of the whole model is very challenging. And if the corporation supports some initiative like supporting with the capex and maybe the part of the opex, then these projects would come up. So some entrepreneurs are required to establish similar models in and around Pune, definitely.
Thank you so much, Santosh ji, for your feedback and comments. So coming to the last leg of the session, now I would now request Dr. Aditi Kale to give her vote of thanks and conclude the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanchita, for organizing such a nice webinar for all. I should thank first to Dr. Rajesh from Arizona. It is a late night and you have spent time for us. Thanks a lot. Actually, you have started with linear economy and then you have highlighted the waste generation per person. You have given the statistics to us. And then coming to the development of circular economy, your presentation was really nice. Thanks a lot for being with us today. We have, Shashwat has a tie with Arizona State University, basically through you, and we are really fortunate to have with us. Then I must thank Santosh Gondalikar sir for your nice presentation. Rightly, you have highlighted the challenges of SWM, that is technical, getting technically feasible, economically viable, and socially acceptable, which is environmentally sustainable solution, really is a tough thing to have it. But your work is showing a great path that you are trying to find out the solutions. Thanks for sharing your presentation with us. We have with us Mr. Anand Jagtap, who has a vast experience in the field of SWM. I must thank him to be with us as advisory board member for Shashwat. And he has shared with us all his experiences with the community, and he has tried to involve community in this SWM activity. Such a nice thing, the initiatives, yes, and we have seen that the things have worked out in Dharavi, especially in this pandemic. I must thank our director, Mrs. Pradnya Thakur, for sharing Mahabaleshwar case study. Without her, this would not have happened. This webinar series is her initiative, and all these things goes well due to her initiatives only. She has rightly said that with Mahabaleshwar case study, Shashwat got one case study which we can share with everyone to show the model development in the SWM activities. I must thank all the Shashwat team, backend team, which is working hard for organizing and creating such nice platform for Shashwat to go ahead with all the concepts. We can share the concepts. We are bringing delegates from outside to this forum, and therefore we can have dialogues with all the delegates. I must thank Sanchita for conducting this webinar such nicely, and thank you for the participants, because without participants the webinar will not have any value. Thanks all for being with us.
Thank you so much, Aditi, for your great concluding remarks. Just to let you know, the participants, that Shashwat is coming up with a training program, and we will keep you posted with the updates of the training program very shortly. We thank you everyone for your presence, support, and all your insightful knowledge about the topic on the circular economy. So thank you, all of you. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.